What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the NBA Hardwood Show, presented, of course, by Run Pure Sports. I'm hosting today, Draftcheat, Peter Christensen, joined today by the one and only TitleTown. What's going on, man?
Yeah, what's going on? We got a nice 7-game slate on a Sunday. We had a postponement earlier. And now we got all that the Charlotte news like an hour ago or something like that. So that changes the whole slate. Looks like they'll be down to about 8 guys I'm seeing. If one gets pulled off, wow, I'm very lagging right now. So my YouTube volume just came up and threw everything off, but we're going now. So we got 8 players, it looks like, that are going to be active. It's the last game on the slate. If one of them somehow is out, the game gets canceled because they don't have the minimum 8 guys to play. But I assume a refund would happen like happened last time. So I'm not worrying about it. It's way too good of a spot to avoid, but we'll get to it. It's a fun slate, though, for sure. Lots of news to break down.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Chicago-Toronto postponed. That would have been a good game to target for sure. I think it's the Pascal Siakam test that's kind of throwing them off. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, but it could be a situation where they miss a few games. It seems like, at least. So we'll see what Toronto does. We do have the All-Star break coming up in 5 days, so wouldn't be shocked if they were going to shut down until then. But as you mentioned, kind of if you're just looking at the slate as a whole, that Charlotte-Sacramento game, like you mentioned, Charlotte down a bunch of bodies. Sacramento pretty short too, right? With Halliburton out, Hassan Whiteside out for that game, and then I think that game has the highest total on the slate as well. So it is like an island game, and I think you're going to see a lot of people with some game stacks of that Charlotte-Sacramento game. I can't vault them. It's kind of my strategy too, and we'll get to that game, at the end of the show, obviously, as we go kind of game by game, starting with the earliest of the night. But a lot of
Jaylen Brown just got announced out too, I see. So that's another wrench into things that changes stuff. So I see Jimmy Butler's questionable. We have Tyler Hero's questionable. That's the main news, Butler, Hero, that we're looking at. We got the Jaylen Brown news. But yeah, more news breaking on the slate. It's going to be a wild one.
Yeah, it is kind of setting up to be a pretty wild slate, but a fun one. I have no problem with that. I think in general, I'm in favor of, the more news, the better. I think it can make for more interesting slates, more profitable spots, all that good stuff. With that, let's jump into it. That first game, like you mentioned, Washington, Boston. In terms of Vegas, this one expected to be relatively high scoring. We'll see if the Jaylen Brown news changes. I would assume it'll kind of make the spread a little bit closer here. Washington, coming off a back-to-back, played well against Minnesota last night. And then, Jaylen Brown being off, of course, brings guys like Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker more into play, right? More usage for those guys. Jaylen Brown, obviously a pretty heavy usage player. So, yeah, let's talk about Washington-Boston to kick it off, because it is, I think, a much better game to target now with Jaylen Brown out, especially on the Celtics side of it.
Yeah, so Kemba Walker, Jason Tatum, they become very good plays with Jaylen Brown out. Kemba's good play on both sides. I like his price. I prefer Tatum's price on DraftKings, where he's 9-1. He has small forward and power forward eligibility. He's 9-4 on FanDuel. But the thing is, power forward isn't great. There's some options that are fine, but he gets a really big bump with Brown out. So he's been playing all formats. Kemba's been playing all formats. Daniel Tice is 4.9K on FanDuel, another power forward. I don't think I'll go there in cash games because there's other options that I like more. But Brown being out, there's more minutes to go around. He'll get a couple more minutes, need his size, and no one's going to play him, I don't think. I like the price on FanDuel. He has upside, so I'm good with him there. Other than that, though, it's pretty much Kemba and Tatum is the only interest I really have on this team. They're just going to have so much usage going around. So I'd stick to those two primarily. Very, very good plays. First game of the night, so you're going to lock in some stuff, but we're going to have a lot of open spots at the end of the night since we're going to have a good amount of Charlotte players. So you'll have roster flexibility throughout the whole night, not worrying about that. As far as the Washington side, I like Bradley Beal's price tag. He's 9.6K on both sites. I like Russell Westbrook. He's 10-3 on DraftKings, 9-4 on FanDuel. Like that FanDuel price tag a lot more. But Westy's playing really good lately. Always has triple-double upside, as we know. So I like the run back as either Beal or Westy. I'm going to lean Beal on DraftKings and Westbrook on FanDuel. And I like it. I like plugging in one of the Kemba or Tatum or both, and then using a run back to start off the slate, because maybe people are going to be scared to lock stuff in their lineups as a run back. I think Washington's going to be low owned, and I always like Beal.
I think that makes sense. Any concern for you with Tatum's recent performances? 2 really, really bad games in a row for him. The minutes were still there, 38 minutes against the Pacers, 32 minutes against the Hawks, but just horrible shooting. 4 for 18 against Indiana and 4 for 20 from the field against the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, I think mostly you just kind of write it off, and assume he'll bounce back. That's kind of what I'm thinking, but you do worry a little bit because he was struggling with a shot sort of a little bit before that. And then, he and the coach Brad Stevens were kind of talking about making sure they don't overwork him. He's saying doesn't feel, totally 100% with coming back from the COVID and all that stuff. So are you at all concerned about that with Jason Tatum? And it is certainly a high price tag to pay for 9,100. You need a big game out of him.
Yeah, no, I'm actually not worried. I'm buying in on the talent. We've seen how good this kid is. And now they're losing the second best player. I mean, Jaylen Brown's been cutting into Tatum a lot this year. He's really taken his game to the next level too. Instead of Tatum being 1A and Brown being 2, I mean, it's 1A, 1B now. It depends on the game. So I'm going to just buy in on the talent. Matchup is great against Washington. Brown out. It's tough to avoid for sure as a spend up. So I'm not worried about it. I'm buying in on the talent.
I'm with you there. I think for the most part, just worth mentioning a little bit of the notes around Tatum. And then Kemba Walker, kind of expensive, right? 6,800, but he is picking it up recently, playing a little bit better, coming off a big game against the Pacers where he played 33 minutes. The minutes are there for him. These last 4 games, 33, 33, 36, 34 minutes. And then the usage going to go up, obviously, with Jaylen Brown out. Good matchup, of course, against Washington. Kemba, rather, kind of seems like he's kind of back to his old self a little bit. Got to be a pretty strong option here at 6,800 for me.
Yeah. So Kemba's I see people in chat too talking Tatum should be 8K, his shots off and all that. And they're not wrong for sure. I think a lot of people are going to be scared to go to him because if you're game log watching or watching him, just for me though, it's buying on the talent, like I mentioned. But Kemba is I rather Kemba for the price and the discount if I had to just pick one. But I assume he'll be more popular too. But his minutes, like you said, he's played 33 minutes or more in the past 4 games. Minutes are fine. He's looking good. 6.8K feels cheap if we're thinking of the Kemba in the Kemba of recent or the past years. And also with no Jaylen Brown, 6.8K. This guy's an 8K player if this situation was known, I think. So I love Kemba, love Tatum. You can play one, you can play both. I'm probably going to have at least one in every lineup. It's just such a good matchup against Washington.
Yeah, I have no problem putting them both in there if you want, but I do think I want exposure to one of these guys, and Kemba would be my preference with the $2,300 price discount. I'll take my shot on Kemba there. Washington side, like you mentioned, I'm with you on Beal over Westbrook, especially on DraftKings. Anyone else from the Washington side you're looking at here?
Not really. It's a good slate. It's a 7-game slate. I just can't make a case for any of these guys but Beal and Westbrook. They have the ball in their hands so much. We have value down below. Not worth it.
Yeah, I think that could be kind of a common theme as we go across these games with that Sacramento and Charlotte game lurking at the end of the slate. It's going to be tough to find a lot of plays to like, I think, in the majority of these games. Of course, if you're playing a bunch of lineups, you're going to get exposure to more guys. But if you're, a 1 to 3 type lineup guy, you're going to have some Charlotte and Sacramento. You just are. So we'll of course talk about that game. We'll save some time to go in depth on that one. Let's go to Golden State and the Lakers here. Obviously, I think the biggest news or the biggest change for the Warriors over these last few weeks has been the reemergence of Draymond Green. Monster game last time out, 3 in a row now. He's been, I think, above 45 DraftKings points, clearly running the offense through him. Much tougher matchup here, though. I know the Lakers obviously still missing Anthony Davis, but they're still a much better defensive team. For me, I wrote about it in my article, but I thought the matchup against Charlotte was particularly good for Draymond Green. Maybe not the case here. Not that he can't get it done. Interested to hear your take on Draymond. The Lakers, it's obviously the LeBron show with Anthony Davis out. They did get Dennis Schroeder back last game, who could potentially kind of cut into a little bit of LeBron's playmaking upside, I guess, his assist upside, if you will. And then in terms of other news and notes, not really much from this game. Kind of rotations as expected, if you will. What are you seeing between the Lakers and the Warriors? We do have a 219 total. Lakers favored by 3 in this one.
Yeah, this is a pretty easy fade game for me. A lower total game, a great 7-game slate, better spots, very easily. Everyone's priced up really, so I have no interest. And as far as Draymond, this guy's been going crazy, but 7.8K and 7.5K for someone that just relies on more peripheral stats. He'll be low owned for sure. I mean, Big T's been over him too. He's always low owned in this price tag. He has upside as we've seen. That's never going to be my call for this price tag. And this whole game's a pretty easy catch up one for me.
Yeah, Draymond Green was kind of my number one recommendation player in that last slate. So I've been all over.
You've been on him too.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, pretty much every slate. It always hasn't worked. It hasn't worked out always, but no player's going to always work out. If you've been on Draymond Green, you've certainly profited from that. But I'm with you. I think I'm going to move away from him. They're just better options, I think. He is capable of that triple-double every time out right now. He just is. So I have no problem if you want to play him, but I just don't think this is nearly as good of a spot as he was in last time out, at least from what I'm seeing. So we'll move on from the Lakers and the Warriors. Again, if you want to play LeBron, if you want to play Draymond, Curry, I don't think they're horrible plays. I just think they're not the top options on this particular slate.
I saw a comment, Sherry L, asking about Robert Williams in the last game. I'm fine with it if you want a tournament pivot from some of the Charlotte guys, but the Charlotte players are just way in better spots for cheap. Their minutes are more secure. But I mean, I'll never say no to Robert Williams and GPPs because his upside is crazy. I like the guy as a player. I wish he got more minutes. Great tournament pivot. So I'm glad you brought it up, but there's a lot safer players for value on this slate.
Yeah. I mean, Robert Williams is the type of player you do want to target in tournaments when they're going to be low owned, like he will be, just because the point per minute upside is so high, the talent is so high. It's just that can sometimes do some dumb stuff on the court where he doesn't get the minutes, but if he's playing well, he can take more minutes, and if he gets more minutes, it's because he's playing well. It's kind of like a chicken or the egg thing where all of a sudden he's going to have some big games. He just is. And if you can kind of pinpoint those when other people aren't on them, that's kind of how you can maybe find yourself at the top of a GPP. So good call on Robert Williams. Again, you can't project him at anywhere near the point per dollar, projection that you're looking at some of the other guys on the slate, but he certainly has the upside to get there. I should mention, we appreciate the questions in the chat. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. We're bringing you guys free shows here on YouTube 7 days a week with the NBA. So please help us out with those two things. We'll continue to do so as we move forward. Let's go to New York and Detroit. I think a fairly interesting game here from a DFS perspective. 210 total. We did see New York, they're playing pretty good, especially relative to expectations this season, coming off an impressive win over the Indiana Pacers last night, where pretty much all their starters and main guys played some pretty huge minutes. Taj Gibson got hurt in that game. He's going to be out for this one too. And we saw Nerlens Noel play 41 minutes, I think 42 for Randall. So just a ton of minutes from the starters. They get a chance to beat a pretty good Pacers team. You understand why Thibodeau did it. That's just kind of what he does. You have to be a little bit concerned, though, on the back-to-back going on the road here to Detroit. You could potentially be looking at, in theory at least, the high 30s, 40 minutes from Noel again. I'd be a little bit concerned about his performance. He wasn't great from a fantasy perspective, even given all those minutes. But if you told me Noel's going to play 38 minutes in this one, you'd certainly have to consider him, around 5K on DraftKings. So interested to hear what you're looking at from New York. We do also know, of course, Alfred Payton doubtful to play. So assuming he's out, Derrick Rose has been pretty damn good as a starting point guard. I would assume he'll start this one. And then from the Detroit side, obviously, they've been banged up to Blake. I assume Blake Griffin's out for this one. I would assume.
Yeah, he's just out for the foreseeable future, I think.
Yeah, I just didn't see him on Basketball Monster. But, he's going to be out. Obviously the Knicks still missing Mitchell Robinson, traded Derrick Rose. They lost their rookie point guard, Killian Hayes. DeLon Wright is out. So we've seen Dennis Smith Jr. and Saban Lee kind of split those point guard minutes. Lee's been pretty damn good. Did have a rough game last time out. Mason Plumlee has been really good. So I don't know. This one kind of interesting to me. What's your take on Knicks and Detroit Pistons here?
Yeah, so this is an interesting game because you see a 210 total. You see these two teams and just think an easy fade. But the Knicks guys have been running. Thibodeau's been running his guys out, like you said, a ton. Now Taj is out. Nerlens Noel and Derrick Rose are the two best plays in this game. In the mid 5Ks for the price tags. And on both sides, I like them. Just playing a lot of minutes. It is a little more worrisome on the back-to-back, like you said, both coming off a ton of minutes. But I love the price tag. It gets you what you want on both sites. I'm fine with both of them in all formats. Love the price. Like the matchup. I mean, they're just good plays for sure. But like you said, be a little cautious on the back-to-back because if Rose, like he got 37 minutes last game. If he goes and gets 28 or something, he's just not going to get there probably for his price tag. There's other options on this slate I'd rather go. So there is more unknowns, but it's too hard to ignore this price tag. Other than that, Jeremy Grant and Julius Randle, the only other two I can make a case for on each site. I think they're good tournament plays, coming a little lower owned. Julius Randle makes a lot of sense if you're pivoting off of Derrick Rose, pivoting off of Nerlens Noel. Randle plays a ton of minutes every game, so I'm not worried about him on a back-to-back. I think that's a very good tournament pivot off of them. And then Jeremy Grant, he's their best player, highest usage guy, plays a ton of minutes. He can do very well in this matchup too for a fine price. So I think it might be a little sneaky. Definitely outside of Noel and Derrick Rose, it'll be sneaky. Curious to see about those two and how much ownership they get. But those are the four guys I like in this game.
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly what the Knicks will do in terms of the minutes, but they really don't have many other options at center other than Noel. You could perhaps see Randall get some more minutes at the 5 here, if they're kind of unwilling to play, because they do have other options that can fill in on the wing, right, or at power forward. But if they don't want to play Noel huge minutes, I think Randall might get some at the 5, which would be interesting for him. My hunch is that if the Knicks play well in this game, the Thibodeau will just run Rose and Noel. If they're doing well and winning the game and those guys are performing, I wouldn't be shocked to see them play 35 to 40 minutes again. I don't think Thibodeau really cares. We got a long history of him coaching where that's just kind of what he does. So I don't mind those guys whatsoever. A little bit worrisome, but got to take some risks, obviously, sometimes. And then Mason Plumlee, I do think, is at least in play. Only played 27 minutes in the last game, but was in foul trouble all game long. I would expect him to be up, near 35 minutes. And, if the Knicks are tired, if Noel gets in foul trouble and they don't really have a center behind him, right, you could see Plumlee kind of dominate. I mean, they do run stuff through him quite a bit. So I don't think he'll be a popular play. It seems like a lot to pay for Mason Plumlee at 6,800, but especially since Blake Griffin's been out, he's been pretty damn good on a per minute basis. And I do think the minutes could be there, and perhaps against a tired, struggling Knicks team. Again, we don't know that for sure, but it's certainly a possibility. So for a 210 total game, I think there's a lot more plays in this one than you might expect.
Yep. Yeah, and another play, like you said, that you can, or you didn't say, but Isaiah Stewart, he's also center eligible. Plumlee's backup. He's had two good games the past 2 games. He's got 20 minutes in those, 30 plus fantasy points, 3.4K. He's just like Robert Williams, where he's going to be unknown. He's just center eligible. Mm-hmm. He's a pivot off the other chalk, like the Charlotte. If Biyombo starts, he's going to be chalky, or Martin and all that. So if you want it 1%, 2% on play, he's been pretty good recently. They like him. If he gets 20 minutes, if he gets 25 minutes, he should do well for his price tag. So him and Plumlee, I think, make for very interesting 1% GPP plays.
Sure. I definitely don't play Plumlee and Stewart together. I'll say that, because Stewart's past the big minutes is Plumlee lower minutes. So just I don't think anyone was going to do that anyway, but just as an aside. Let's move to Memphis and Houston. I personally don't have a ton of interest in this game, to be honest. Mostly healthy teams here. Justice Winslow going to be back in there. Houston will be missing Victor Oladipo, so I think John Wall would be kind of the guy that I might look toward from the Rockets side of it. Grayson Allen out for the Grizzlies. 223 total. Memphis favored by 3.5. So, those two things at least are fine, but I just don't really trust the Memphis minutes almost anywhere outside of Ja Morant. So, yeah, I think it would be Morant and Wall if I'm looking to get different, right? Like if I'm looking to kind of get away from the chalk, but I'll be just honest, they aren't my two favorite plays on this slate.
Yeah, so this is a game I have a lot of interest in. It's
Okay.
John Wall and Eric Gordon are my two favorites on the Houston side. Oladipo out, they have the ball in their hand the most. Eric Gordon's only 5'3" on FanDuel. He's 6K on DraftKings, so a little more expensive, but I still like him. Sterling Brown at 3.9K, Daniel House at 5.3K, Nawaba 4.6K. I would rank them in that order when you're going in the mid tier to down below, but I like all these guys. They're going to need them to play a lot of minutes. It's a good game environment, so definitely will have some pieces of Houston. Wall and Eric Gordon are the best plays. On the Memphis side, Justice Winslow is only 3,400 on DraftKings. He's going to get some ownership for sure. He's small forward and point guard eligible. He'll be played at small forward a little bit because the position isn't great. He's got 21, 25, 21 minutes the past 3 games. I don't love the play. This is where I think, because he'll get some ownership, like if you pivot to a Robert Williams at a different position, Isaiah Stewart, stuff like that, I think it makes a lot of sense because they'll be way lower owned and easily can outscore Justice Winslow. He's grading out well in projections, so that's why he'll get some ownership. And John Morant, 7.2K on DraftKings, 7-1 on FanDuel. I love this matchup for him. We always talk about how much upside this guy has. He's been turning on a little as of late. I've liked watching what I've seen from him, driving more, just getting involved. Very good player, lots of upside. So I like this price tag too. Valanciunas is 7.4K. I like that price tag. Should be lower owned. This is a very good game, and I have a lot of interest on both sides of it. And I'm not sure how much ownership it'll get. It's a 223 total, but there's like the Charlotte side, and now with Jaylen Brown out, the Boston side, they're going to have so much ownership. I think this game might get overlooked a little bit outside of Wall and Gordon, and I love this game for tournaments.
Yeah, you kind of talked me into it a little bit. I mean, I do think we'll see Winslow be one of the highest owned value plays on the slate, kind of depending on what else opens up and, what exactly you're defining a value play as. But I think, under 4K guys on DraftKings, I think you'll see Winslow be one of the higher owned guys. He's been pretty aggressive with the shot in the 3 games that he's been back. I think you're going to see him. I don't think there's really much variation in his minutes. I think you're going to see him out there for 20 to 26 minutes, kind of no matter what happens in this game or how he plays. We don't know that for sure, but that's kind of my estimation. He's capable of putting up 20, 25 fantasy points at 3,400. Obviously, that's a pretty good score. So I think you're right on him and his ownership. I like him, but he's going to be chalky, and we know that, and certainly capable of busting as well. So I'm always a little bit hesitant to play chalk like that. Wall 8,300. I mean, where do you rank him amongst some of the point guards around him? Guys like LaMelo Ball, De'Aaron Fox. I guess I would throw Kemba Walker is going to be popular at this point. Even John Morant in the same game. I think I'm a little bit lower on Wall than you are, but it sounds like you're pretty interested.
Yeah, I really like Wall, but like you said, I love LaMelo. I love Fox. I love Wall. I love Kemba now. Yeah. Like I'm going to try and get his you can't play. I love Morant. You can't play them all. I'm going to have a lot of guards in my lineup. Like I sometimes say it's a 2 center night. It's this. Sure. Like I want as many guards as I can. How I would rank those? I'd probably go Kemba because of his price.
We're talking like point per dollar or just your interest.
Yeah. Point per dollar. And this could change. I mean, it's so close. All these guys are such elite plays. It'd probably go Kemba, LaMelo, Fox, Wall. Yeah. And I don't know. Like I literally could make a case for all those guys. Sure. John Morant is definitely last in that, and he'll have the least amount of ownership. But I mean, anytime he's going to be low owned because everyone else is chalk, he's a great GPP tournament play for sure.
Yeah, and you're going to get a little discount on Morant too, 7,200. Pretty good price point for him. We don't see him down at that price point very often. So I'm with you. I think kind of the main point or takeaway from that is get some guards in your lineup, especially on DraftKings where they kind of have more roster flexibility. You can get, 2, 3, sometimes 4 of these guys if you can play some of them at shooting guard. So yeah, it definitely seems like a guard heavy night in general. We'll keep moving. Just a reminder, please hit that like, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us bring you these shows for free. We certainly appreciate all of you guys watching. We'll go to Atlanta and Miami. Still waiting on some pretty important news for this game and frankly for the slate. Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero both questionable to play.
I
don't know. Do you have a read on if these guys are going to be in at all?
I honestly don't have a read. I haven't really heard anything too much. We have one game before that, and that's because all the games start an hour after lock except the Boston game. And so I'm not really going to worry about it. I'll plug in the Boston guys that I like, either Tatum or Kemba and stuff, and then I'll just wait for the news. So I'm just, no lean. I'm not going to worry about it. We'll have enough roster flexibility.
Let's start and analyze this game as if Butler and Hero are out, right? Because I think that's when this game becomes really interesting and one that you're really going to need to figure out if both of those guys do miss, because Butler has kind of been the de facto point guard for the last month basically for the Heat. Tyler Hero, also a guy that takes a lot of shots, can distribute. You take him out of there, Goran Dragic I think becomes a pretty interesting play. He kind of proved that he was fully healthy last game, had a huge game against the Jazz.
I think Big T. I think DC is. Oh, you're back. Sorry, I don't know if it was you, if it's me. I couldn't hear something.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
It might be mine.
Yeah, no worries.
Say it again. Sorry, you're back.
Yeah, I was just saying, if Butler and Hero are both out, those guys are, heavy usage, heavy playmaking guys. That's really going to open up a lot of opportunity. Goran Dragic, I think, is interesting. 5,400 on DraftKings. It was good to see him have a big game against the Jazz, right? So at this point, we basically know he's healthy. He's ready to go. He played 33 minutes, I think, in that game. I would still maybe expect him to come off the bench behind Kendrick Nunn, but you would expect, if he plays well, 30-plus minutes again. If we're kind of talking hypothetically, if Butler and Hero are out, Kendrick Nunn, I think, would become a little bit interesting. And then Bam Adebayo, I think most people wouldn't necessarily think that he'd get a huge bump with those guys, but I think you'd see some usage bump. And then he's a really, really good passer for a big man too. So they could kind of run a little bit more offense through him, especially when Dragic is not on the court with him. So if Butler and Hero are out, how much of a priority do guys like Dragic, Nunn, maybe Adebayo become for you?
Yeah, so I would need both of them out for it really to make a difference. If either one of them's if either one of them's in, then it's not as much on this slate. But if those two are out, Dragic at 5,400 becomes a good play. The thing is, though, we just talked about all the guards we liked. That would just be another guard in that situation. I hope they're in. I mean, I don't think both of them will be out. I expect at least one of them to play. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Bam, like you said, he would definitely get a bump just because they need him to do a lot more. However, he is one of the guys that I think plays better with Jimmy or better with the playmaker in his hands for the pick and roll. Just the defense isn't keyed on him as much. So I still would like him, though. It'd be hard to ignore. 8.9K. He'd be the best player on the team. I like this game. I like this matchup against Atlanta. The thing is, though, I expect one of them to at least be in, and I like other games more. So another very easy fade for me, catch-up game, unless we get both of them out. And then, Dragic, Bam. None is – I probably still wouldn't go 5.6K. If he gets a start, I'd like him too. But the thing is, the guards, it's hard. I love Wall. I love LaMelo. I love Fox. I still might not even play these two. I'd have to see, to be honest. But I'm expecting one of them to be in. I'm expecting not to play anyone in this game. Kelly Olynyk, 4.4K on DraftKings, 4.4 on FanDuel. Center eligible, but if those two are out too, he'd get a bump. Everyone would get a bump. They need more shots up, and I'd be fine with that price tag. Yeah,
kind of running the numbers with Butler and Hero off the court. Dragic, big bump for him, as you might expect. Pretty nice bump for Adebayo in terms of usage. And then I would, Dragic and Nunn, basically the same price. Assuming Hero and Butler are both out and Nunn starts and Dragic doesn't, which would you lean between those two? For me, it's Dragic still.
I'd probably lean Nunn.
Okay.
I'd probably go with the starter. I think it's really close. I don't have a strong lean on that, but I'd probably lean Nunn just because I've seen them play him 40 minutes.
Yeah.
I've seen the ups, but I don't know. Yeah. Nunn slightly. It's close, though. There's definitely not a hard lean on that.
Yeah, especially, if that situation did play out, Nunn would definitely have the more minutes upside, right? Like the starter almost always does. Dragic, to me, the better point per minute player, kind of the more explosive fantasy player. You can see him rack up, get out in transition, all that good stuff. So I think I'd lean Dragic, but I certainly understand where you're coming from with that. What about the other side of this one, the Atlanta side? We know Cam Reddish going to sit this one out. But other than that, a relatively healthy team in the Atlanta Hawks. There's not much.
I have no
Yeah,
I have no interest. The prices are good. They're healthy, way better spots. I think it's easy fade.
I'm with you. Yeah, I really have no Hawks, and so it's like one of those slates where I don't even necessarily know the prices of all these guys because I haven't been considering any Hawks really all day. So unless something changes in terms of who's in and who's out for them, probably a full fade of the Atlanta Hawks for me. Let's move on to the 9 o'clock. I think just two more games to talk about. The 9 o'clock Eastern time game is Phoenix and Minnesota. As you might expect, Phoenix favored in this one, 10.5-point favorites going into Minnesota, 225 total. Minnesota played last night. Karl-Anthony Towns let me down. The Minnesota Timberwolves let me down once again, of course. I'm going to have to be shotgunning another beer, losing a Embiid cat bet to old AP once again. So tune in for that, I think, probably next week. I don't know. I mean, Timberwolves, they're playing real fast. They've been horrible defensively all year long. That doesn't seem to be changing whatsoever. I don't really love this game, especially from the Minnesota side of it. I'm not going back to Cat here on a back-to-back. Chris Paul has just been playing phenomenal basketball right now. I mean, he should absolutely pick this team apart, right? But there are just so many great guards to play. Paul's probably like 6th or 7th for me, even though he's definitely got, that 50-point upside at 7,800. I guess the problem for me is, does he really have more upside than that, right? And is 50 fantasy points, you certainly take it at 7,800. You'd play him if you knew he was going to get that many. But that's kind of, for me, the ceiling for him. I do think he's got a decent chance to reach it here. I'm guessing you're maybe leaning with me that this is kind of an unappealing game overall.
Yeah, we just have so many other better games with Boston, with the Houston game, Charlotte. It's just another game where I just don't have too much interest. The spread's 10.5. Could be a blowout. Like my favorite play in this game is Chris Paul, like you said. He's been so good, but I don't like him over the 6 other guards that I mentioned. Exactly. And so I'm with you. I think it's a pretty easy fade. There's not even going to be anyone I make a case for because I'm not going to play anyone in this game. So pretty easy fade for me. And the next game's awesome, and we'll have a lot of exposure to that one. So that's why.
Yeah, absolutely. If you need a punt, Jalen Noel played pretty well last night, 26 minutes. The Wolves obviously missing Malik Beasley, who's suspended. So I think Noel's probably going to get close to 25 minutes a game. He's a pretty good shooter. He's playing well. 3,800 on DraftKings. I don't mind it, but he had to shoot really well from last game to kind of get there. But
yeah. Did you? I was going to ask because I played him last game too. He was 3,200. Now his price increased 600. He only got 25 minutes. Did you watch that? I know you're a Timberwolves fan. Like he shot the ball really well, or did you not? Did you not watch it?
I didn't see it. I've been impressed with him in general. He's a good player. So I think the minutes are going to be there for him. I do think he directly benefits from the absence of Malik Beasley, but maybe it's kind of like a pivot off of Justice Winslow, pretty similar price. I assume Noel will be much lower owned. So something like that.
Another value pivot. So I like it, but 3,800, it's not, it's going to be one of those, like we said, the Stewarts, the Robert Williams, perfect.
He's another guy you can kind of throw in that bucket, but not a must play by any means. All right, we'll talk about the last game of the night, and then we'll give our kind of favorite plays overall in this slate. And the last game of the night, we've mentioned it several times already, is by far the best one. Again, Chicago, Toronto postponed. Obviously, don't play any of those guys. But Charlotte and Sacramento, not only does this game have by far the highest total on the slate, sitting at 236.5 right now, the Kings favored by 3. It also has, I guess if you want to put it this way, like the best injury news that opens up value for other players. Like we said, Charlotte missing a bunch of guys: Gordon Hayward, Devontae Graham, Cody Zeller. Devontae Graham for sure out. Those other 2 guys are doubtful. I'll be very surprised if they play. And then from the Sacramento side, missing Hassan Whiteside and Tyrese Halliburton. We saw Sacramento play in this, same guys out a couple of nights ago against Detroit. And we saw big minutes for basically all their starters: Fox, Harrison Barnes, Rashawn Holmes, Buddy Hield. All these guys played almost 40 minutes. I kind of expect something similar here. And then from Charlotte, I mean, they're not going to have a choice but to play a lot of their guys for some huge minutes. We saw PJ Washington get the start at center last game. That could happen again here. We'll see what they do with Bismack Biyombo, who's still super cheap and could get the start. I mean, I think I can make the case for like 10 or 12 guys from this game, frankly. So I'll just, I guess, throw it to you. Pick a side and start talking, because we're going to have a lot to go over here.
Yeah, I will say in the beginning of the show, I said they'd have 8 available bodies. It looks like Caleb Martin, the other Martin, is going to play too. So they should have 9. So, I mean, it shouldn't be canceled, but I wanted to correct that. But yeah, I mean, this game's by far the best. I guess we'll just start rattling off who's in play on both sides, because it's literally that good. So Biyombo, he's the big question, because we all expected him to start last game, and then he comes out and they start Caleb Martin instead. So I don't know, or they started Cody Martin, excuse me, instead. I don't know what they're going to do. Whiteside's out, so it's not like it's Bagley and Holmes. PJ Washington could match up, and they could go smaller most of the game. He played 12 minutes last time. But the thing is, I mean, like, he's grading out as one of the best plays. If he plays, he should absolutely dominate in this matchup. They only have 9 bodies. Like, I still like him. I'm still probably going to play him, but there's no one really to switch to because it's the last game of the night. He's center eligible. So it's just very interesting. I think that's the main thing. Look at starting lineups. You're going to have to be on your phone until after this game, or until this game locks, because we don't know the starters. But yeah, Bismack, LaMelo, Terry Rozier. I like Terry Rozier a lot more on FanDuel, where he's 6.8K. He's 7.9K on DraftKings. I think it's a good tournament play, but you're definitely spending for it. But he does have upside in this matchup. Cody Martin, he should get the start. He's very cheap. PJ Washington, like you said, Miles Bridges, Malik Monk. You can play all those guys. How I listed them is how I rank them. I would go Biyombo is the best value, I think, but man, I don't know. It's so tough. Like, what are your thoughts on Biyombo? If he doesn't start, they only have 9 guys, but he got 12 minutes last game. And if he gets 12 minutes, he's going to probably bust.
Yeah, you would certainly think so. I don't really want to play him if he doesn't start, frankly. Obviously, they kind of proved last game that they're comfortable rolling out PJ Washington out there for a lot of minutes at the 5.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tough ask for him against Rashawn Holmes and Marvin Bagley, but maybe they do it. Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, you have to make a decision about Biyombo. Before you have to be fine with him, I think.
So I sort of agree with you, except that I know I'm going to have so many players from this game myself. Like, I'm going to have so much exposure to this game that I'll be able to change out. You could you could move pieces in and out of this game, right? So for me, do I prefer from a projection standpoint LaMelo Ball to Terry Rozier? Yes. But I have no problem pivoting from LaMelo to Rozier himself, right? Like, he's going to be way lower owned. We've seen plenty of big games from Rozier lately. He's been a little bit slow these last couple, but he's going to be extremely involved in this one, especially with Gordon Hayward out. I mean, Rozier could easily get up 20-plus shots, give you 6 or 7 assists. I mean, he's fully capable of outscoring LaMelo. Then you've got, De'Aaron Fox is in there, obviously a good play. From the Kings side, I mean, I like Buddy Hield. I like Harrison Barnes. I like Rashawn Holmes. Of course, I like De'Aaron Fox. So I guess my point is I want to have as much flexibility for this last game as possible. And I do think leaving a spot for Biyombo is smart, but you can get away from him if he doesn't start, which I think is the play, just assuming that you have, I'll have a minimum of 4 or 5 plays from this game on any roster that I make. So I do think maybe have a plan, right?
Yeah.
For where you're going to pivot. That would be my recommendation if Biyombo is in or out. If he does end up sitting, I really, really like PJ Washington at that $5,900. I think it's $5,900 price tag. I still like him even if Biyombo starts, but I think a much stronger play if he gets a start at center. I do like the pivot kind of from LaMelo to Rozier. I think you'll see Rozier come in maybe 10% owned and LaMelo 30, 35, something like that. Like maybe even lower for Rozier. I'm not sure. I think people are really going to be scared off of that $7,900 price tag. And LaMelo's for good reason, but he's kind of like the sexy play, just a fantastic rookie, all that stuff. So I don't mind that pivot. De'Aaron Fox is interesting to me. I'm interested to hear your thoughts there. I've kind of talked a lot about Charlotte's very unique defense. They allow by far the most spot up catch and shoot attempts in the entire league, and then just crush pick and roll ball handlers. And Fox, 41% of his offensive possessions come via the pick and roll. That's a little bit worrisome for me, but I mean, he could also be finding guys around the arc, setting them up for threes. I think Fox has a very good chance at double-digit assists here. I should check the props on that one. I would take the over on Fox assists for anything basically below 10, which I'm sure it is. So he's interesting. I mean, Buddy Hield's been disappointing, but a fantastic matchup for him. A guy that primary offense is shooting threes. Nobody allows more three-point attempts than the Charlotte Hornets. Harrison Barnes could play 40 minutes here. I mean, the Charlotte side is fantastic, but so is the Sacramento side of this game. It's just, for me, I know it's going to be chalky, but it's a pretty easy game stack for me in this one, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I'm with it. The only thing I was saying about Biyombo is so if you just play him at center because you want other guards and stuff, and so you plug him in at center, and he's 3,300. The cheapest center pivot in this game is PJ Washington, who's 5,900.
Sure.
So that's a 2,600 difference. But so you'd have to do more. You'd have to go like LaMelo to Buddy Hield.
You have to make a few swaps, but they're out there. I mean, Barnes, Hield, Monk, like these guys,
It depends if you had him. I think you made a really good point for everyone, though, is you always should have a plan. And especially now, because like we don't know who's going to start. Biyombo usually starts when Zeller's out and stuff, but he didn't start last game. And this is a matchup where, I mean, PJ Washington can play Holmes against the 5. Like they don't need a true big in this matchup. So like you have a plan for sure. I agree though. I'm going to have tons of pieces. If Biyombo doesn't start, that's like, I don't want to play him as much, but I think he's going to get more than 12 minutes. They only have 9 guys. So I don't know. It's very, very interesting. All those Charlotte guys are in play though. Bismack is risky, but LaMelo, PJ Washington, Jalen McDaniels is 3.2K, who should get some minutes. I expect him to be low owned or unplayed on the Charlotte side, and he's going to play 20 plus minutes. As far as the Kings side, like you said, Fox, I love him on both sides. He gets a big bump with no Halliburton because, I mean, he has the ball in his hands now the whole time. I love his assist numbers, like you said. So I expect him to get Harrison Barnes involved, Buddy Hield. I don't play those two. I haven't played those two like at all this year, but this is the matchup to finally hop on. I especially like Barnes on FanDuel. He's 6.5K, but I don't love the small forward position. So he makes a lot of sense for sure. Like him on both sides, though. You can play everyone in this game, I think, like you said. Bismack, Bridges, Martin, Fox, LaMelo, PJ Washington, Buddy Hield, Harrison Barnes, Rashawn Holmes, Terry Rozier, Bagley, Jalen McDaniels. Like, they're literally all in play. This is by far the best game environment. The bodies are low. Two teams that don't play a ton of defense, push the ball, late night hammer. You're going to want a lot in this game for sure.
Yeah, I think I might end up playing 5 or 10 lineups and stacking this game 5 or 10 different ways, frankly.
I love it.
It's that good of a game. Caleb Martin being active, he was inactive last game. It's weird to say, Caleb Martin being in there changes things, but it does, because going from 8 to a 9-man rotation, and I assume Caleb Martin's going to play in this one. He was in the rotation before. He's going to probably play 20 minutes. That will take a little bit away from his brother, who I would have liked much more as a value play if Caleb Martin wasn't in. Could take away from Malik Monk, Miles Bridges, right? Like it does affect things a little bit. Those guys all still in play, but that extra body, it just reduces the minutes upside, I would say, for some of those guys. I don't think it affects really at all Rozier or LaMelo. And probably doesn't really affect PJ Washington either, frankly, but it does kind of affect those, backup wings, I guess, that we're looking at 30 plus minutes and now, maybe playing 26, 27, which obviously when you're trying to scratch out every point, that does make a pretty big difference.
I will say too, for Malik Monk, I like him more on FanDuel a lot more than DraftKings, because you're forced to play 2 small forwards. He's small forward eligible. He's 4.9K, where he's like 5.3K on DraftKings. So I don't like him on DraftKings. I wouldn't play him over there, but FanDuel, if you need it, we know this guy has a ceiling. So 4.9K, bad small forward position, you can definitely do worse.
For sure. That is all, 7 games on the slate. Looking over, seeing if we got any new news while we were talking over that game. Not seeing much. Jeremy Lamb, questionable. That came down a little. Yeah, that doesn't matter, obviously. He's questionable for Monday. Never mind. Let's give kind of just our favorite overall plays, I guess. What's your play of the day? It's obviously not the workbench, but what do we call it for TitleTown?
Yeah, it's been the SO play of the day. MMA DC. He had that tangent where he just kept, because the coach was saying SO.
All right. I like it.
And then we were all in Discord, and yep, SO play of the day. It's very hard though, because I can't make a case for a 1% or 2% play on this slate, because you're just you're sacrificing so much. This is one of those spots, like Big T says, you play the Charlotte game, you play your Kings game. You might not win it all, you might not bink, but you take your 2x return, you take your 3x. It's hard to see a lot of these guys failing.
Give you a chance at a bink. Yep, I'm with you.
Yep. So that's where I'm at. I'll try and give someone that's not going to be extremely high on. Oh, it is tough though. I'll go with Rashawn. I'll go with Rashawn Holmes at 6.6K because he's only center eligible, and I don't love the center position today, so it's not going to take away from the other guards that I want to play. And Bismack might not start, and if he doesn't start, I would rather Rashawn Holmes' upside for sure at this price. So I like the idea of just plugging him in, building your lineup, expecting Biyombo not to start. Then if he does start, you can mix around the pieces, and you'll have plenty of money to mess around. So I think Rashawn Holmes can eat in this matchup, has a lot of upside, and I like the price. So that's the SO play of the day.
I like it. I will go with I'll stay in the same game.
Hold on. What's the name of your play? Everyone has a name. You got to come up with your.
It's clearly the Mom's Basement play of the game. This is approved by Mama DC. PJ Washington. I was very high on him in that Golden State game. Came through in a big way. Got in some foul trouble. Would have played more than 29 minutes if he didn't. I like him, especially if he gets the start at center, but he'll start either way. I'm on him either way. Charlotte kind of proving that they're willing to use him at center for significant minutes in that last game against the Warriors makes me even higher on him, right? I think if things break right for him, he could be in the upper 30s in minutes. I would expect him to get over 10 rebounds in that scenario, decent score. So I'll go with PJ Washington, 5,900 on DraftKings as the Mom's Basement play of the game.
Love it.
Yeah, we'll be getting, obviously, hopefully we helped you out on the show. We'll get all the stuff you need up on the site. I've got my core plays coming in during the next hour. Not sure if you're on those today, but
mine are up right now. I think I'm going to make a couple slight change. I mean, I'm going to, because Brown was announced out. We talked about all of it. So I'll have a little updates to it, but I have some up right now. I know you're up there. AP already has his up. I saw he'll be messing with it. Then I think I saw Uncle T on the sheet. Always love Uncle T winners.
Gotta love it. Thanks for tuning in. As always, everybody, we will be back here for a free show, of course, Monday through Friday, heading into the NBA All-Star break next weekend. And until then, he's Title. I'm DC. We'll check you next time.
Good luck, guys.